And check it.
In Florida. You were in Florida. No?
Delaware.
Delaware.
Yeah.
We're home with
I literally walk from my car to the church door, and I get a tan. I used to. I have a friend who's, again, I'm in college. He's his dad's black, his mom's white. People used to mistake us for each other because we were the same color, like whatever, brown. Yeah.
That's very beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and I like the hair too.
Well, yeah. The hair is.
Good evening, everyone.
It's subtle.
Welcome to the 2022-2023 season of Spirit on Tap. We're trying to figure out how many years it's been, and we don't have a consensus. It's been a lot. For the time being, at least, we're going to leave the doors open because we're in a different place. So if people are arriving and looking for Spirit on Tap, it'll be more easy to see us. So you obviously didn't have to validate your parking until either October or January. We have two different renditions from the staff at the front desk. Whenever that happens, you will probably need to download an app on your smartphone. Hopefully you have one. Yeah, and you'll be parking. You'll have to be in an area or a zone, and you put your license plate in there, and they will charge you however long you're here. I don't know what the cost will be, but anyway.
No more validated.
No more validated tickets.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately, so
We've
we
been
will
validated
apologize for
enough.
that, but we have no control over it, so we won't. There's a basket up here for contributions. It's not necessary. This is a free event, but we do appreciate contributions, but we have some expenses that we need to take care of. So thank you particularly for being here, being present. We got a much better crowd than when we were ending last year, so we're grateful for your presence. I also want to mention that Dr. Harry Serio has a new book out. This is the book, The Other Side of Memory. And that's Harry over there, if you didn't know him. I think more people know Harry than know who the Pope is. So this is Harry's new book, and he's willing to sign it. And you can purchase it for $16. $16.
Is that with or without a signature?
The signature is another $16. I'm not sure he'll sign it for free. Okay. Our purpose is to gather together in a setting where challenging and complex current cultural and religious faith issues are presented, shared, and discussed. Not here to judge, but rather to create a safe space for significant conversation. Please be respectful of others and the views that they share. There will be a presentation of 45 minutes, an hour? 1 hour. 1 hour. Set your clocks when he starts. And following that, there'll be a time for questions, comments, and we'll bring the microphone to you so that everyone can hear you. We have two microphones tonight, so the Reverend Dr. Steve Onsman will take one side, and I'll take the other side, and we can field questions more easily that way. Although we want to encourage good discussion, please don't dominate the conversation to the point where others are unable to share their thoughts. When it is time for the time, just raise your hand, and the microphone will be brought to you so that you can ask your question or make your comment. We believe we can hold to this format. Everyone will leave here enriched. Once again, we would like to thank the Crown Plaza. Look at me, I'm going back now. Sorry for that. We're like Craig Poole is in here. We would like to thank the Doubletree for their generosity. They offer this venue for free. It is a great gift, and so we are very thankful for that. Unfortunately, because we're in here, we will not have a server. You can't, if you want to get something to drink or eat, you can do that. You'll have to go probably to the bar to do that. So, I'd like to introduce at this point Reverend Dr. Harry Serio, who will introduce our speaker for the evening.
George Burns, who was asked to introduce a speaker at a dinner one time. He got up and he said, "I'd like to, our speaker tonight needs some introduction," and then he sat down. But our speaker tonight is worthy of an introduction because I think most of you know Charlie Curtis, and he is very prolific in his presentations in various venues and so on. He is a board certified hypnotist. He has a YouTube channel. He has a lot of other things. Make sure that you pick up the flyer that you have here. You'll see all of his references and all of his bio and so on. So we're very grateful that he's with us today to talk about the science and theology of mind-body healing. And he'll describe what he's going to be doing, and we'll have time for questions, but this will be not only a lecture, but it will be experiential. So without further ado, Charlie Curtis.
So make sure that you got one of the sheets coming in that have the notes on it, because I'm going to be doing some technical things and it's easier to follow if you have the notes in front of you. Also, it has my contact information and my references for the talk that I'm giving. And in case you didn't notice, my name is Amos Boot, and I'm an Amishman. I lived in Berks County my whole life, and these are the clothes I wear all day long. I love to wander the fields and forests, and I'm a farmer, and I work with my hands, and I love being close to the earth. We call people who are not Amish the English. So my English friend, Charlie Curtis, asked me to introduce him. He's been wearing clothes like these since 1968, when he became a freshman at Franklin and Marshall College. And he often wears them when he spends time in the fields and forests of Berks and Lancaster counties. And during all of that time period, he has often been mistaken for an Amishman. I think it's because of the hat. Because most English don't wear straw hat and suspenders, but the Amish do, and so does he. Anyway, despite his looking like a farmer when he goes out walking, his background is in hard science, chemistry, physics, electronics, and engineering. He's also been a student of psychology, and especially hypnotherapy and mindfulness, two methods of deep relaxation that result in healing. Because of what he knows, he helps people to relax. And because of his scientific background, he knows how to use electronics to listen to people's minds and see their stress levels and help them relax and leave their burdens behind. And when that happens, they get better. And often, their sicknesses go away. Thank you, Amos. I agree with your point that we are known by the hats that we wear. I like the way a straw hat feels and look forward to wearing it in the summertime when I go out walking, but for now I'm going to take the straw hat off and invite all of you into my classroom, where I teach people how to become mind-body therapists. It's become my passion, my life's work. Because I also know that we all wear an internal hat, which nobody sees but us. And an internal hat is how we privately feel about life and our place in it. And we feel that hat on our head all day long. And too often in today's stressful life, that hat feels like the thought, I'm no good. Or I feel bad about myself. Or I have a painful situation in my life that won't go away. Or I don't enjoy my life. Or I hate my job. Now, people with a negative self-image like that wind up in my office because their constant negative feelings are causing their body to get stuck in a negative state. It's causing them to have a chronic illness. I had that problem. Back in the 70s, I was in grad school for a PhD in chemistry up in Boston. And I was depressed with life in general, disillusioned with the politics of academic life in particular. And I had chronic sinusitis, which if you've ever had it, you know, can be quite painful. So I went to the University Health Service, and all they wanted to do was give me Valium for the depression, which I had the good sense not to take. I chose instead to attend a university group on meditation, and I loved it so much. I dropped out of the PhD program and spent the next 2 years living in the ashram that sponsored the university group. I've now been meditating for 50 years, 3 hours a day. That's 54,750 hours. And I can't stop meditating because it feels so good and brings me so much peace and joy. So although I was depressed, I didn't have a biochemical imbalance that needed Valium to correct. I had to learn how to come into harmony with life by learning more healthful ways of thinking and feeling, and that solved my problem. I needed a natural, spiritual solution, and when I got it, my chronic sinusitis went away. Since the ashram days, I've used meditation to maintain my health, and as a consequence, I've only seen a doctor twice since 1974. And one of those times was for impacted earwax. So meditation is good for your health. Which now brings me back to brainwaves. I never became a chemist, but instead used my science and engineering background to study the technology of meditation. And what I'm wearing under my Amish hat tonight is an EEG, or electroencephalograph. It's a layman's level unit, so it's about $88,000 cheaper than the one they have back in the hospital. But this particular unit is accurate enough to be used in scientific research, and it's quite helpful in helping people learn how to relax. This particular unit talks to your cell phone. And when I'm done here tonight and they pass the microphone around, if you have a few extra minutes, stick around, and I'll fire up the headband and demonstrate my brainwaves on my cell phone for anyone who wants to see them. So what is a mind-body healing? In the United States, we give a disease like cancer all the power. We're deathly afraid of it. We think of it as a terrible and all-powerful mechanical process, working its inexorable devastation in our helpless physical bodies, while we watch hopelessly in despair as we deteriorate and die a horrible death. Whereas any mind-body person will tell you that there is a strong stress component to any major chronic illness, that your body wants to be well, and that if you can eliminate the stress, that seeming miracles of healing can occur. Lawrence LeSean, a PhD psychologist who worked in the hospital setting, helped people who were ready to make psychological changes that caused their cancer to go into remission. He found that this is not what we call in research an outlier, meaning something that happens rarely, but a reproducible result that he could teach other therapists how to do and get the same result. I have this book with me, Cancer as a Turning Point. It will tell you all about it. And I have several other mind-body books. If you're interested, you can come up and look at them after we're done here. This book was published 40 years ago, and it was peer-reviewed and replicated, so it's now settled science. In the first case history of many, a woman with melanoma, that's skin cancer, worked with LeSean. He found out she hated her job and the corporate culture that sucked all the joy out of her life. Over the process of some months, he helped her make a career change to something she truly loved. And when she did this, her melanoma began to get smaller and eventually disappeared. And at the time of publication, had remained in remission for 20 years. Bernie Siegel is a cancer surgeon who began to suspect a psychological component. He's given talks in Berks County several times that I attended, where he talked extensively about people who were living 25 years past their prognosis, once they were coached into shifting their psychological mood from pain to peace by finding their true purpose in life. A number of years ago, I worked with someone in Berks County who was given permission for me to tell her story, who woke up one day with 13 tumors from stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I introduced her to the mind-body paradigm, and she started practicing some techniques I recommended. Sometime later, her oncologist from Johns Hopkins called her up, all excited, because her cancer had gone into remission so quickly and so completely that he said it looked on the PET scan as if the cancer was never there. There is so much evidence that cancer is influenced by mind-body processes that a book was published last year called EFT for Cancer. EFT is a technique where you tap on acupuncture points and it improves your health. The first sentence of the first chapter is, "Cancer no longer carries an automatic death sentence." Dawson Church, a current researcher, was vetting participants for a research study when he met someone with a good-sized breast tumor which had metastasized into her lymph nodes. He proposed a mind-body approach, and in 1 month, her tumor had shrunk, and the metastases in the lymph nodes were gone. And in several months, she was cancer-free, and has remained so. I have many such cases described in the literature in my library. This is not unusual. It is the expected outcome if you use these techniques. It's not just cancer that can be rolled back. Dean Ornish, a cardiologist, developed an approach that was tested at Scripps Medical Center. If you have heart disease but are not having an emergency, his approach uses meditation plus dietary changes to cause your coronary arteries to unclog themselves so that a stent or bypass or transplant is no longer required. During their testing, they tried to get the sickest patients they could find, and it worked on everybody. It's been so effective that after 15 years of replicated data, it's now reimbursable by Medicare. Here's a partial list of diseases that mind-body techniques can improve, often dramatically. This is from Dr. Herbert Benson, who researched mind-body medicine at Harvard University for 50 years, and who developed the Benson-Henry Protocol, which has helped many people return to health. This information is found in his book, The Relaxation Revolution, which I have right here, and shows meditation effective for reversing angina pectoris, anxiety, depression, high blood pressure, infertility, insomnia, hot flashes from menopause and disease processes, nausea, chronic pain of all kinds, migraines, other headaches, musculoskeletal tension, pain of all kinds, including back pain and sciatica, chronic joint pain, that's right, chronic joint pain, arthritis. We can make the pain go away, and sometimes we can make the whole thing go away. Pre and post-surgery conditioning, Parkinson's disease, phobias, premature aging, PVCs and palpitations, these are cardiac conditions, PMS, allergies, asthma, congestive heart failure, constipation, cough, diabetes, that's right, diabetes, drowsiness, duodenal ulcers, fatigue and dizziness, herpes, hostility and anger, impotence, obesity, postoperative swelling, PTSD, and tinnitus. And that's a conservative list, things for which hard research has been done. So at this point, you might legitimately ask, if these techniques are so effective, why aren't they better known? Because when I talk to my doctor, they don't seem to know about this stuff you just talked about. Now, to reply to your question that it's because drug companies many years ago began to disparage psychosomatic medicine as the placebo effect, and successfully lobbied for it to be removed from medical school curriculums. So it basically disappeared. So your doctor may have heard nothing about any of this in their medical education. I am, however, encouraged by the recent interest in integrative medicine, where these leading-edge techniques are now being discussed in leading-edge medical schools. So let's get to the brainwaves, which help us understand what this is all about. So now I want you to get that page of notes that I gave out and find the top of the page where it says brainwaves and mind-body health. First of all, it's an EEG headband, just like the one in the hospitals. It's picking up your brainwaves, but it's transmitting them to your smartphone, which is then doing calculations on them and using biofeedback to bring down your stress. Now, this particular unit that I have shows many different bands. The first band is beta, normal waking consciousness. Now, if we think of brainwaves as occurring in a continuum from too low to measure to the highest ones we know how, we have gamma up top, and then underneath we have beta, and then underneath we have alpha, and then we have theta, and then we have delta. Now, beta is normal working consciousness. All of you are in beta right now because you have to be awake and function in the physical world. Alpha is below that, and when, as soon as you hit alpha, you get relief from stress. If you were feeling stressed, you feel this, you just get soft. Creativity wakes up in you, and all of a sudden, you're full of solutions, where a few minutes before, there seemed to be nothing but problems. Below that is a level called theta, and that's where we go to get our stress relief. When we sleep deeply, we go into theta. Cell replacement accelerates. At that point, Deep healing takes place if you're not getting deep sleep, you're not hitting theta, and that can be one thing keeping your chronic illness alive. Underneath that, at the bottom set of frequencies is delta. In delta, your sense of separation disappears. You know how you say, I feel lonely, or I feel separated from my family, or from society. All that separation disappears when you hit delta. It's a deep state of meditation. You feel unity of all life. And it turns out this is where we go when we have spiritual experiences. Gamma, that's at the top. And that's a very fast frequency. That's where people like Magic Johnson do their magic, because it's where you get integrated peak performance. You find yourself being in the zone. Now, I'm a hypnotherapist. What does that is? You could think of it as therapy in a relaxed, altered state of peace. I'm not working with your conscious mind. I'm working with your subconscious mind, which is where the problem is. And we can usually fix the problem a whole lot faster than we can with talk therapy. Also do something called MBCT. It's Mindfulness-Based Cognitive Therapy. Now, mindfulness has exploded in the last couple of years in the medical field because they found it improves everything. You do mindfulness, your health gets better. End of sentence. And it's something that's related to the meditative disciplines from the Eastern Buddhist tradition. They took the Buddhist tradition and they took out all the religious stuff, and they took the techniques. This was done at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center. There's a guy named John Kabat-Zinn. And what he figured out how to do was how to use his meditation techniques with his pain patients. And they found that basically 50% of the pain would be gone in 8 weeks. For some people, it was entirely gone. Their symptoms were up to 50% better, and that's just in 8 weeks, and just from doing some meditation. So somehow, meditation is really good for your health. They found that it could lift depression, because depression can only happen when you're not only in beta, you're in high beta, and you get stuck in negative thoughts. So they found if you get somebody out of theta, or out of high beta, all of a sudden they're not depressed anymore. So it's not like they have a biochemical imbalance. That in the last 50 years, there's never been a shred of evidence that that theory is true. And the only companies promoting that theory are the ones that benefit from selling antidepressants. In fact, there was a study released a couple months ago that said, hey guys, no evidence for this, might as well own up to it. So it raises mood, lifts depression, it gives you somewhere else to stand. It gives you a place to go in your mind where you're not depressed, you're peaceful, you're happy, you're relaxed. You know, the waterfall of life is still there, but you're behind the waterfall. You're like the observer. Oh yes, I can see this drama in my life, in my family, in the culture and politics, but it's not bothering me today. Those therapeutic altered states that I talked about in hypnotherapy, if you take them deep enough, they turn into spiritual experiences. I have clinical techniques. One person wrote a whole book on one clinical technique where they said, I hate to admit this, but people who do this technique have spiritual experiences. It wasn't my objective, but it happened anyway. And now we simply have to admit that it's true. So what do? We do targeted interventions. They're usually about 15 minutes long, and it triggers a healing process. Now, it might take us 2 hours to decide what that targeted intervention should be, but once we figure out what to do, it only takes 15 minutes to get the process running. Now, when the stress is removed, the body instantly begins to move toward homeostasis. Homeostasis is that magic place where everything in your body is normal enough that your doctor's going to give you a thumbs up and say, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And it leads to this thing that we don't know anything about in this culture. It's the biology of optimism. And it can lead to remarkable healings, sometimes even instant healings of things that we don't know how to do yet at Harvard Medical School. Now, the science of mind-body healing, we have two nervous systems. We have the central nervous system, that's the brain and the spinal cord, but we also have another system which is much older from an evolutionary point of view. It's called the neuropeptide system, and it all are chemicals that run around in the bloodstream. So that's called the lizard brain because it's present in all animals, lizards on up. And We have at the top of our brainstem, we have something called the amygdala. And the amygdala runs the limbic system, which is the old brain. And the old brain knows how to talk to the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenal. They actually call it the HPA axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal. So when the lizard brain fires off, the lizard brain is to tell you if this is an emergency and you need to fight, flight, or freeze. So when that goes off, immediately your body is full of stress hormones and you're ready to fight or run away. Now, the big bad boys are adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol. They get you ready for action, but if you're in emergency all day long, if you're upset all day long, if you're in fight, flight, or freeze all day long, it's a problem because it was only designed to last for 20 minutes. You know, in 20 minutes, you're either eating or being eaten in the animal period. So, and we inherited that. So after 20 minutes, you start getting tissue damage. How many people do you know who stay upset longer than 20 minutes at a time? Maybe even you. And one of the problems about this old historical system is it shuts down everything it considers non-essential. Have you ever noticed that when you get upset, you can't think straight, you can't feel straight, and you have this tremendous urgency to do something that you just know is going to get you in trouble, but you do it anyway? That's what the fight or flight system does. It literally shuts down the blood supply to the front of your brain where you think rationally. I saw a training film that actually showed the blood vessels beginning to shut down when the person went into fight or flight. So it shuts down the emotional thought and it shuts down the rational thought and leaves you with only emotional thought. In other words, it turns you back into a teenager. And you know how clearly teenagers can sometimes think. The problem is the fight or flight system makes everything and everyone into the enemy because it's a biologically designed overreaction. You know, it's the woman who can lift the car off her kid who got caught underneath, something she could never ordinarily do. So it's an overreaction, but it can help you or someone you love survive. But because it turns everything and everyone into the enemy, like that car would be the enemy for her, it can turn your spouse into the enemy, turn your kids into the enemy, or your parents, or somebody at work, or somebody in politics. It's the cause of war. If you're not upset with somebody, you're not going to go to war. If you're in fight or flight, it's easy to go to war because you can say, here's a line in the sand and everybody on the other side is the enemy and I'm justified in killing them. Because fight, flight, or freeze makes you want to hurt, kill, or destroy everyone who's the enemy. So what gets us in trouble are the lizard brain's anger, hunger, fear, and sex drive. Those Me Too executives who decided to try to have an affair with the secretary and got in trouble for it, they didn't fall in love, they fell in lust. Because lizards don't know anything about love. They know all about lust. The life of a lizard is a whole lot simpler than the life of a human being. So one of the things this lizard brain does is it shuts down the immune system. Because the immune system uses a whole lot of energy, and you don't need the immune system if you're about to get eaten. So, but guess what you need if you don't want to get COVID? You need an immune system. So what do we do in our culture? We grab the microphone and we scare the heck out of everybody all day long, 24/7 for months and months and months. We put up little chirons on the screen and show how many people died today. We scare the heck out of people. We tank their immune system. We turn down their ability to fight COVID. I'm convinced that many people who got COVID who didn't have to got it worse than they needed to, and some of them died. If only someone in that particular group of physicians have been trained to take the microphone and say, while you're waiting for the vaccine, do yourself a favor, do some Tai Chi, learn some meditation, learn some stress management. Go to your therapist, do something to get the stress out because it may help protect you. So what happens is you have beta and you have high beta, which is where you go when you get upset. When you're in high beta, that's the thing that gets us depressed, it gets us bipolar, it gets us all these mood disorders, all of that is high beta. And so meditation training is the opposite of that. It heals you. Mindfulness improves all outcomes, both physical health and mental health. I don't know of a single study that didn't show that mindfulness didn't improve the outcome. So what does that tell us? It tells us that chronic stress is the root cause of chronic illness. Because what happens is you get out of balance in a way determined by your genetics, which is different and yours. So we all get different illnesses because we're susceptible to different things. And so the reason that you get ill is because it's an overreaction. Fight or flight is an overreaction. It's like driving with your foot pressed to the floor all the time. And when that happens, is your car wears out really fast. Well, the same thing happens to your body. If you're in overreaction all day long, your body can't get back to that state of homeostasis where your doctor would pronounce you healthy. You're essentially dying faster than you're living. So anytime you're upset, you're dying faster than you're living. So if you are upset a whole lot for years, it knocks 10 years off your lifespan. Those things called telomeres are the things at the ends of cells that tell you how to, whether your chronological age and your physical age are the same. You can actually, if you do enough meditation, you can actually lengthen the telomeres. They get shorter every year. But if you do enough meditation, it will start to lengthen again. There's something magic about meditation. But looking at medicine, we all have our own genetic weak link. So many illnesses, one cause. Now, there's this thing called epigenetics, which is fascinating. It's popped up in the last couple of years. Epigenetics says that your genes aren't just there. They're either there and they're on, or they're there and they're off. If you have a predisposition toward breast cancer, or cardiac conditions, or diabetes, and your gene is turned on because you're stressed a lot, you will get the family illness. If you're not stressed enough to have the gene in the on condition, you don't get the family illness. So all of a sudden you have some control. If we can stay out of stress, which is almost impossible in daily life, we can keep from getting the family illness. But if you add meditation to the mix, you can. Here are some statistics. 1 hour of the tapping technique. What they would do is they take a bunch of people in a room like this, take a blood sample, teach them the tapping protocol, do a workshop, take a blood sample at the end of the day. In that day, their cortisol's down 37%, which is a big shift. It's not normal. And it would not be expected just from sitting and going through a workshop. So somehow, the tapping, which happens to be on Chinese acupuncture points, did something. I have a movie of a doctor in a Chinese third world village, and everybody's lined up in front of him, and he's there. He's tapping on everybody like this. And when he taps on them, it's good for their health. And also, it doesn't cost anything, which is why it hasn't caught on yet in Western medicine. But anyway, that tapping technique is magic. And I actually had somebody with 20 symptoms one day, and they listed them, and they were literally experiencing them all. And we started doing some meditation, some of this tapping, and in 2 hours, all their symptoms were temporarily gone. Now, they were there because they had chronic stress. And so I had to teach them chronic stress. They had to keep coming back to me, and they had to integrate that meditation into their lifestyle. But you know what protects you from COVID? One of the things is called immunoglobulin A. It's something in your bloodstream that is generated by the immune system. And people who never meditated before and who do a week of meditation in a certain way, 130% more immunoglobulin A. And what it does is it folds itself around the spiky things on COVID so it can't spike into the cells. Wouldn't you like to have 130% more immunoglobulin A? Well, one of the people who's doing research is a guy called Joe Dispenza, and he noticed that people who went to his workshops didn't seem to be getting COVID. So he contacted the University of California, San Diego, and got a skeptical scientist to do a study. And what they found is, yeah, you're right, I didn't expect it, but the people who are going to your workshops don't seem to be getting COVID. They collected data for 2 years, both vaccinated and unvaccinated. They tried to get a cross-section. So it did seem to make a difference. So here's some of the other things that it does. I was telling you how it gets your body back to normal. It will normalize your blood sugar. Like one of the things when fight or flight gets blown off is you get a spike in blood sugar, because if you have to run or fight, you need blood sugar so that your muscles will stay energized. Well, if you stay in fight or flight for years, your blood sugar is always going to be high. And guess what that's called? Diabetes. So if we can get that to turn off, diabetes can go away. And guess what? We can get that to turn off. Psychological, I want to go over the other things too. Blood pressure, it's really good for blood pressure. Pulse, it'll bring down a rapid pulse. Respiration, it'll give you a more healthy respiratory rate. And if you have a chronic illness, some of them, they have markers to tell you how bad it is. And what happens is the marker goes back to the healthy place. I had somebody in one of my workshops where we were doing a scientific study that day, and their blood sugar was really, really high. It was up in the hundreds. It was not in a healthy place at all. And the nurse who was measuring people, taking vital signs, said, you should stay, you should go through the exercise. In an hour, her blood sugar was down to 85, which is normal. So this stuff really works. Psychologically, it has a similarly healthful effect. It reduces panic. People have panic attacks. We can take them away. We can get rid of phobias, usually in about 15 minutes, and they don't come back. Fear. Someone is fearful, they have anxiety. We can smooth all of that out. Stress, it's great for stress. Depression, I know how to get somebody temporarily out of depression in about 5 minutes. Then we can work with them in succession and help them do some things. And then if they learn how to do this permanently, they can come out of depression, stay out of depression, and not go back. One of the biggest problems with depression is people have a very high relapse rate. And so when you learn mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, it was originally designed to work with people in depression and keep them from relapsing. It's very good for that. And mood dysregulation, all the different things we call mood disorders in the DSM-5. When you learn how to do meditation, most of them pretty much go away. Now, so in the medical world, they call this spontaneous remission. Spontaneous means we don't know how to do that, therefore it must have been spontaneous because the body can't do this by itself, of course not. So we know in the mind-body field that spontaneous remission from severe illness is not only possible, it's routine. If the person is willing and able to do the work and submit to the process. Now, at this point, somebody always says to me, well, are you telling me that if I had been better at stress management, I wouldn't have had to have that illness, or my loved one, or someone in my family? And I said, well, that's right, but no blame, no shame, and no guilt. Because you don't know something until you know it. You don't do it until you learn how to do it, and you don't get the results until you've done it for a period of time. We started studying this with science in the 1940s, Cannon, when he discovered the fight-or-flight response. So nobody knew anything about it then. And then it started to gain momentum, and it became the psychosomatic medicine part of medicine. And then it was decided not to teach that anymore, so a whole bunch of doctors never learned it. But now with the integrative medicine, I'm happy to see it starting to come back. So I just tell you, look, we're a product of our history. Today, I can do 30 protocols. When I started out 35 years ago doing this, I knew one protocol. So I can do a whole lot more for you today than I could back then. And it's true for everybody. We don't know what we know until we know it. So don't blame yourself, don't shame yourself, and don't feel guilt of any kind. Now, turn the page over. I want to talk about a few protocols that heal. And like I said, I know over 30, and there's a whole bunch more that I don't even know. So there's a lot of people out there exploring this brave new world of psychosomatic protocols. Here's some that are especially useful that I use and a lot of people. Somatic experiencing. It's called talk to the illness. So we have the conscious mind, and then we have the subconscious mind, and then we have the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind runs the body, but it doesn't speak English. The subconscious mind talks to the unconscious mind, and it translates what the unconscious mind says into English and then communicates it to the conscious mind. So we say, I'm going to talk to the illness, I really talk to the subconscious mind in a particular way in a therapeutic trance state. And after a few minutes, we get some information back, which is information that the conscious mind never had before. The conscious mind doesn't have a clue what's going on at the unconscious level. What we find out when we explore the unconscious is truly amazing. So that, Peter Levine is the current guy for that, and that's responsible for a lot of people getting rid of PTSD and other bad problems. Ericksonian hypnotherapy. There was a guy named Erickson. He was an expert in hypnosis. He was a psychiatrist, and so now we call it Ericksonian hypnotherapy in his honor. And he figured out how to get people past their resistance. Because relax. There are parts of your body maybe you didn't feel more comfortable than you are right now. And a lot of people find that when I do this process that their legs begin to relax. So I just said the same thing. Your legs are relaxing, but you didn't get any resistance. So that's what Ericksonian work is. The EFT, the meridian tapping, there's over 256 studies now that are well designed. Dawson Church is heading up the research for that. Instant stress, instant pain relief. We can have somebody who had pain from an accident for 30 years. They've had this pain. In 15 minutes, that pain can be gone and does not return. We can do literally magical things. And when you inhale a pile of data and come up with a conclusion, that's how your doctor comes up with the diagnosis. Deductive logic is when you start with conclusion and then you generate the data from that. So if your subconscious mind, which only thinks deductively, has the thought in it, if the PowerPoint in your mind, the slide in your mind says, I'm no good and I really suck at math, you're going to have low self-esteem, and when you take a math course, you're going to do horribly. But we can change that. We can give you a new self-image. We can change that PowerPoint, and all of a sudden, you'll be the best person in the school at math. And there are studies that are done that have showed that. So it can change outcomes instantly. You have to be in a nice, deep therapeutic trance for that to happen, but that's where you come to somebody like me. Specialized journaling. I'm an expert in journaling. I develop concepts in journaling no one else has. I just presented a workshop at a international convention a couple of weeks ago and presented techniques no one else has ever done. But we can get you from pain to peace in about 10 minutes. We can get you from depressed feelings to feeling okay in about 10 minutes. And if you keep going, you not only flip into a positive mood, you can go all the way to ecstasy. So what's this ecstasy all about? We have 7 neuropeptides in the body, and I'm going to be talking about them in a minute, but our body is designed to get high all night. That's why marijuana works, because we have receptors in the body for a neuropeptide called anandamide, which is the Hindu word for ecstasy. And when something matches up with that, you feel ecstatic. So people get stoned and they say, I like how it feels. So we have the ability to get high all night. How many people do you know who get high all night? Most people are miserable most of the time, and some of them are sick too, so they're even more miserable. So Herbert Benson, Harvard University, all the way back in the 70s, started doing research on it. He just died a month or so ago. And he said, we not only have the stress response, we have the relaxation response. And so he developed a technique called remembered wellness. If I can get you into this relaxation response, where you're going back into homeostasis, and then I can have you remember a time when you were well, your body will get well again. The body knows how to do that. The subconscious mind will recreate your wellness. And he helped thousands of people. Well, he was the guy that developed that enormous list of diseases that I was reading a few minutes ago. Neurolinguistic programming. That's something I'm a trainer for an international organization for. It's a process that sits on top of hypnotherapy and measure. It takes some concepts from psychotherapy and marries them to the hypnotherapeutic model. And the result is our protocols that help you gently feel better. It's a very soft process, but it can solve all kinds of problems like old family memories that are bothering you. It can take the chip off your shoulder. It can make you so relaxed you don't care about the other family member with the chip on their shoulder. So it's wonderful stuff. And I promised I was going to talk about the theology of mind-body healing. When I was back in junior high school, I got a connective tissue injury in one knee while I was on the track team. I came out, I was late for practice, they were running sprints, so I started running sprints without warming up. Result predictable, I messed up my knee. As a consequence, I could be walking down the street and suddenly something would come out of place in my knee and I would have to stop and bang my knee back into place. I did that for years, but I didn't want an operation, so I put up with it. But I found out about a church that was getting fantastic healing results, and I went there one Sunday, and during 15 minutes of guided meditation, I felt a deep divine love surrounding me, and my twinge of trouble from that knee since then, and that result has held for 30 years. Never needed that operation. How did that happen? Well, mindfulness, there are 3 levels of mindfulness. Level 1, when you first come into my office and learn mindfulness, I have you sit down and I say, how do you feel? And they say, I feel terrible. And I say, what do you feel about life? Well, life sucks and then you die, and I feel like I'm dying. I hate this mindfulness stuff, and I think I'm going to get up and leave. And I say, well, hang out for a couple minutes. So I take them further down into this thing, and all of a sudden they're feeling happy. Because I got them out of fight or flight. And so they're not out of fight or flight, but also they're relaxed, and they're peaceful, and they're in alpha, so they feel relief, solutions are coming, and so forth, and so on, all those levels of consciousness. And if you keep going far enough, you get blissful. You get those 7 neuropeptides, they come out in a cocktail of a specific method, and when that happens, you feel blissed out all night. I remember, because I was in a Hindu ashram, there were all these saffron-robed meditation teachers talking to us, so they had their kind of sing-songy way of talking, and they would talk about bliss, and when you feel the bliss, just feel the bliss inside you. Comes up because they would talk about the kundalini coming up the spine. The bliss comes up and it goes out the top of your head, and you feel wonderful. It's so wonderful. And they said, if the person beside you looks like they're dead, don't call 911. Because they're at the best party they've ever been at, and when they come back, they're going to tell you all about it. So they didn't know the science, but they knew how it worked. So that brings me to, well, what's going on here? Because I started having the mystical experience when I was in the ashram. And the mystical experience in the Hindu ashram sounded suspiciously like the mystical experiences in my father's books on the people in the cloistered orders who were reporting mystical experiences in Western religion. And I began to figure out there is only one God, and this is it. And I like God. God feels good. And so I figured out at this point there's something going on more than just 3-dimensional life. In fact, I learned there's an altered state you can go into. And this altered state is, this is a spiritual universe. And God is in charge, and that God is good. Now, there was a very famous man about 2,000 years ago named Jesus of Nazareth, who said a few pithy sayings which are still with us. For example, he said, it is done unto you as you believe. So this belief thing must be important. And then he healed a bunch of people, and he never said, I have healed you. He said, your faith has healed you. Isn't that interesting? In fact, when he tried to heal in his hometown, he couldn't get any healings, because they knew he was the carpenter's son. And not that the carpenter's son do anything for them, so he couldn't get any healings there. So even he was unsuccessful. So this faith thing must have something to do with it. Well, another thing he said was, believe that ye have it, and ye shall have it. So believe in advance that you have it, and you shall have it. Well, if you want to win the Olympics, you have to believe that you can win the Olympics, and you have to do it in advance, because you have to get up every morning at 5 o'clock for years and years, and go do your exercises and your practice. And you're not going to do it unless you believe in advance that you're going to get there. Well, it's the same thing for physical illness. If you believe you can have it, you can have it. Another thing in the New Testament, the prayer of faith shall save the sick. So this faith thing is cropping up all over the place. So how much faith do you need? He said a grain of mustard seed. Now, mustard seed is really small. It's the smallest seed in that part of the world. So he was saying you may have a lot of fear, you may have a lot of doubt, but all you need is a grain of mustard seed, and you can get the healing. So what I did was I ended up joining that church where I got my knee healed. I said, I got to learn how to do that. And I did, and now I do it with people. So someone comes to me for science, or they're referred by their doctors, we do something from the 30 protocols, or they say, I want to work with you spiritually, we do it as spiritual counseling. Same deal. All you need is to reach the tipping point of positive, reach the tipping point of faith any way you can, and you will heal. The more faith you have, the faster it will happen. In other words, I had built up a lot of faith, so when I went in that day, I was ready for an instant healing. A lot of people, if they're not ready for it, they'll heal. They'll just heal more slowly. But what we learned from that, a lot of people have let go of organized religion. They said, I don't feel there's a God, or if there's a God, it must be capricious, because that person got better, but they didn't, and I can't get anything to happen for me. And so they have a great deal of disappointment. Well, it's because they didn't learn to get in that altered state. The altered state was more common in some of the older cultures. It's not very common at all in this culture. Most people don't even know that it exists. But when you go into it, what you find is that you can have experience of the awareness of the presence of God today, right now. And when you have that experience right now, you can heal right now. So God's love never fails. It's totally there all the time, but it's faith in his love that turns the key in the lock. So the organization that I belong to is called Science of Mind, and they have a 100-year track record of helping people get rid of disease. It actually come out of the New Thought movement, which spawned a number of these healing traditions. Now, one of the things they discovered is that the prayer petition isn't very effective. The prayer petition is when you say, oh God, please heal me from this terrible disease that I'm suffering so much from, and I think it's going to kill me, and I know I can't get better from it, but then you do something anyway. There's not very much faith in that. What we've learned is that if we can do this thing, first of all, we counsel the person and get them to move up into more faith. And then we teach them this thing called affirmative prayer. And then we do affirmative prayer with them in this technique called spiritual mind treatment. Well, affirmative prayer is something like, I'm beginning to feel you, God, presence, and I'm calling you Father, Mother, God, because I know you have the qualities of not only the Heavenly Father, but you have the motherly, maternal qualities of loving. And I'm grateful for what I'm feeling. I'm beginning to believe, like that Olympic athlete, that maybe I can be healed. And I'm beginning to move towards that right now. I'm beginning to feel some faith rising up in me. And there's a whole lot more faith in that. And the people who pray like that are the people who get healed. So what happens? The gifts of the Spirit. The still small voice. The Father within. So the still small voice, it's very still. You have to get quiet, like in meditation. It's small. You have to listen, like in meditation. It's divine guidance. It's there 24/7, all day, every day, for everyone on the planet, all the time. And most people can't hear it because their mind is so busy yammering. You get to experience the Father within. And in fact, the scripture says the Father within, he doeth the work. We don't do this by willpower. We open ourselves up to the divine love. And you get to experience the Holy Spirit as a present moment reality. And the Holy Spirit wasn't just for the disciples on Pentecost, it was for everybody. It's here, available all the time for everyone. And if we get high enough in consciousness, we can feel it. What happens? When that happens, you get to experience that peace that passeth all understanding. So I have a bunch of references at the bottom of the page. First of all, I have a YouTube channel. I don't have a lot of stuff on it, but I have 2 journaling processes out there. The one called Mindful Journaling will teach you some of the science I didn't have time to talk about today, and will also take you through that mindful process. It's a hardcore process. Even if you're feeling really crappy, it'll pull you out of it. The headband that I showed you today that I'm going to demonstrate after we're all done here tonight, if you want to hang out, that's called the Muse. The website is choosemuse.com. If you get on YouTube, type in Cody Rawl. He's a psychiatrist. He has lots of good tracks that will teach you about the Muse. Dawson Church, he's one of the current researchers. He knows all about the Muse. He's used it in studies of his own. He is mastery over this tapping technique. He's done lots of research on that. He developed his own style of meditation called eco-meditation, and then did a lot of research on the results of that. And he wrote a wonderful book called Bliss Brain. Bliss Brain is what happens when the 7 neuropeptides all line up and you get high on life. And he actually has pictures of the Muse, which is the headband I have, developing scans, which you can see in the book, of people developing that blissful state. And so he talks on and how they worked with people from monasteries and nuns who had a mystical tradition, and people from the East who had all kinds of experiences, and they all went to the same place. They all developed And in fact, he had one study where he said, put up your finger when you're starting to have a spiritual experience. And people lift their finger as soon as they hit that band of frequencies called alpha. Another book I have today, over here in the corner, is Hypnosis and Counseling in the Treatment of Chronic Illness. Has tons of case histories of people who walked back their cancer, including someone who had bone cancer so bad they were spitting up blood with bone fragments in it, and the doctor said, a couple more weeks and you're gone. Well, somebody got this guy in a meditation class, and 5 years later, he was still in perfect health. Meditation makes a difference. There's a whole bunch of stuff in Science of Mind on how to heal using spiritual means. So the book is called The Science of Mind. The organization is now called Centers for Spiritual Living. Their website is csl.org. Now, we have 2 Science of Mind groups here in Reading. I run one on Wednesday nights. At this point, because of COVID, we went to an online format, and so I started pre-recording it. That works really well. We now have 180 people involved in it. It's because it's pre-recorded, you can play it more than once. And I separate it out into tracks, so you can find the meditation track if you like it. You can play it every day for a week if you want to. Then we have Sunday morning services where a bunch of us get together. And right now we're doing it on Zoom. We had a church, but the church closed when they had the lockdown. And so we decided to get online and stay online. So we're having fun. And if you write to me at the contact information at the bottom of the sheet, we'll get you hooked up with either one of these. Now, something is important that I do. I teach a 48-week graduate level certification course in evidence-based techniques for professional caregivers and interested lay persons. So if you're a physician or somebody that assists medicine, like a physical therapist, or if you're a psychological person, psychiatrist, a psychologist, licensed professional counselor, etc., or even if you're just an interested lay person, you can take this class. And it'll take you all the way up to graduate level textbooks that we use in it. And also, we'll give you certifications in stress management consultant, consulting with the contact information below. And you'll be able to jump right in and start learning these wonderful techniques so you can add them to your toolbox. Since some of you are on YouTube and you don't have the handout in front of you, I want to read my contact information. It's Charlie, ACH, at yahoo.com. That's CHARLIE, Charlie, and the letters ACH at yahoo.com. That's the best way to contact me. Or you can call me on the phone, 610-781-1822. Now, I hope you got enthusiastic about all this stuff, so now we're going to take 10 minutes, and I want to lead you through a nice little meditation. So give you an idea of what that mindfulness-based stuff is all about. And at the end of it, I'm going to drop down into the faith-based stuff. And so you'll get a total picture here. So put your papers aside and get ready to relax. So allow your eyes to close and your body to begin to relax. Let go of anything that was on your mind. Anything keeping you from being the person you wanted to be, doing the things you wanted to do, having the things you wanted to have. Letting go of anything that was keeping you in bondage. And over the next few minutes, as you listen to the sound of my voice, allowing yourself to relax so deep that you can make the change you came here to make. And the change you came here to make was to open yourself up to the experience of what it's like to begin to move into this consciousness, this altered state, where you can begin to know that this is a spiritual universe and that there is something called God, and it's real. Not only that, but it's a state that can cure your illnesses. It's a state that can bring you back to perfect harmony. It's a state that put you back in homeostasis. And as you listen to the sound of my voice, I'm moving into meditation, so just follow me down. And as you listen to the sound of my voice, I'm moving into meditation. So just follow me down. And as you listen to the sound of my voice, I'm moving into meditation. So just follow me down. And as you listen to the sound of my voice, I'm moving into meditation. So just follow me down. And as you listen to the sound of my voice, I'm moving into meditation. So just follow me down. And as you listen to the sound of my voice, I'm moving into meditation. So just follow me down. And as you listen to the sound of my voice, I'm moving into meditation. So just follow me down. And as you listen to the sound of my voice, I'm moving into meditation. So just follow me down. And as you listen to the sound of my voice, I'm moving into meditation. So just follow me down. And as you listen to the sound of my voice, I'm moving into meditation. So just follow me down. And as you listen to the sound of my voice, I'm moving into meditation. So just follow me down. And as you listen to the sound of my voice, I'm moving into meditation. So just follow me down. Just notice you're already beginning to breathe more slowly. You can begin to feel your body as it begins to relax. As you relax deeper and deeper. The Bible said to contact God, we needed to go into our closet and shut the door. And that's what we do. Can you imagine that if you take this process deeply enough, that you can move into an altered state of consciousness? There are so many people in fight or flight that most people believe that's all there is. And yet, can you understand now that there's something more? Something new? There are many ways to get there. You can get there petting your cat. You can get there holding your grandchild. You can get there sitting on your porch and watching the birds. Or you can do a formal meditation process like we're doing today. But as you go down into meditation and you begin to see the world through softer eyes, if you were having a problem tonight, you may already find a solution. Coming further than that, we move down into theta. And you know you're starting to get theta when you start getting dream-like images. So whether you go there tonight or not, sometimes it takes more than just a few minutes to get to theta. All of a sudden, you feel like you're dreaming. And at that point, not only are you dreaming, but your body is beginning to heal. And as we keep on going, you begin to become aware that this universe, everybody seems to think there's not enough. It's actually full of abundance. In fact, there's abundance everywhere, all the time. The scripture says that your barns may be bursting and your joy may be full. God is not parsimonious. God is here with us in our innermost being all the time, every day. And God wants us to have the most wonderful experience of love that is possible. And as we go down further, we begin to find that we feel a kinship with every being on the planet. Humans, animals, plants, the earth itself, it's all alive. It all contains the presence of God. It's all made of the presence of God. What else is there for it to be made of? As you drop down into that awareness, you suddenly realize you could never do anything to hurt another human being in this state of mind. In fact, you go into it far enough, you can have compassion for everyone, even those who are behaving badly. And if you keep on going all the way down, you hit that state of oneness, which is talked about in the books of mysticism and those people who had near-death experiences. It's where you know that you are not just a breathing bag of skin, that you are a spirit, a spiritual being, that you have eternal life, that you cannot die, and you were never born. You just pass through this body this time around. And next time around, who knows what you will be. But we get many cracks at life on this planet because it's a place where spiritual beings come to spiritually evolve. And so what often happens is we come here, we have amnesia for where we came from, and we spend the rest of our life finding our way back to God. And so it's a wonderful experience for those of us who are ready. And I hope over these last few minutes you found yourself enjoying the feeling of moving into that state. And this is the state where diseases begin to heal. In fact, if you came into this room tonight with a chronic illness at this moment, it's starting to get better. And if you practice this kind of meditation long enough and regularly enough, it can go away completely. And that, my friends, is the good news of Jesus Christ. It's the good news of leading edge science today. It's the good news of philosophers and mystics and meditation teachers of all kinds. And so I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Thank you very much.
We'll have some time for questions or comments or reactions, if you wish.
questions or comments?
Just raise your hand and go. I got one up here. Go ahead. Speak it to the mic.
Thanks. That was an excellent presentation, Charlie. Thank you.
But the story is, keep your head in the clouds and keep your feet on the ground. And a lot of this is about acquiring ecstasy. And I've been a peace activist, and I wondered how this applies to, like, ICANN and international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, or looking at the war in Ukraine, and issues that of the Holocaust, and how do we heal from the pain, and how do we stop war, and how does this apply to those kinds of issues that are certainly have pain, and how do we stop?
Well, it seems to be a situation where we have to heal ourselves, and then we become a center of peace. And then we group together with other people who are peace-loving, and we become an organization of peace. And so we become organizations that can begin to lift the consciousness of the planet. For example, I am very great admirers of the Buddhist tradition, people like Tara Brach, Jack Kornfield, great American teachers, and there are many other teachers as well. And they just, if you listen to them talk, they are so peaceful. They're just in that place. They're in that centered place. And if you live from there, not only do you have better health, but the people who hang out with you begin to heal as well. And of course, they're teachers, so they're helping to spread the movement. But to me, one of the things that the Buddhists do that I really love is called loving kindness meditation. It's where you, first of all, find love within yourself for someone that you know, and then you experience their love for you, you visualize and imagine that, and then you begin to extend it to your family, anybody who's unhealed with you and your family, and then, your social group, or, and then you keep going until you get to the split between the political parties, and all, it's harder and harder to heal as you get more and more general. But the whole idea is the meditation guides you to stay in that soft, meditative place where you can maintain the consciousness of compassion. And from there, even if other people are behaving badly, which undoubtedly many people are, we can hold them in peace and we can see them. I was listening to what happens when you see someone healed. I was listening to a talk today, and somebody asked the Dalai Lama, when the Chinese wanted to take over Tibet, why didn't you fight back? And he said in his gentle voice, he said, war is obsolete. So if you have a higher consciousness, you know that. And if you have a lower consciousness, you want to make war. And one of the things that I think is that everyone is operating from the standpoint of love, but when you're really upset, your circle of love gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it's just your social group, and then your family, and then just yourself. So if you love only yourself, you can be behaving badly towards everyone else on the planet. So I think everyone has the right intention, but our biology, that fight or flight thing gets in the way. If you haven't mastered fight or flight, it's going to master you.
So I know Charles for years, really long years. And the reason I know him because he used to cater my restaurants, him and his wife. He used to come every night by 10 o'clock, walking in with 5-6 books underneath his armpit, and walk right in and sit in a certain booth all the way at the end. So I looked at him and I was so scared of him, like I didn't know what he is all about. Every night he comes in and he walks with all these books, so I didn't know. So I walked my way in to try to know him, and so I get to know him, and I get to talk to him, and I get to learn everything he was about. The reason I'm saying this, because I went through this with him, what he was talking about. 2005, I had my one of my restaurants since 1990. That's when he started to come in. When I was young, he was younger. So 2005, I had a crisis, personal, family crisis. And this is the first time I ever spoken about this ever since 2005, by the way. This is the very first time. And he did not expect me to mention anything about it. So I was so depressed. I was really, didn't know what to do. And one night I was sitting, talking to him, and all of a sudden I started crying. Just like that. I mean, so he asked me what's going on. So I just said, I have a really personal problem. He says, okay, I have a practice. Why don't you come to me and we can work this out? So before you know, of course, I wanted anything to hang on to. I wanted something to get me out of what I was into. So I went to his office in Warrensville, and he worked on me. I went there, I don't know for how many sessions. And he really, everything he talked about it, he done with me. And even though he was telling us about it, I was sitting thinking and back living into this, especially the tab he was. Even when he was talking about it, I started to tap it because I forgot about it. Because I started practicing. Then by the time, because we get busy, we get distracted, we get really out of things we're supposed to do. So, I mean, I just wanted to say that this man is a true healer. And what he struck me when he said that you have to believe you're going to be healed. So you have to have faith in order to get healed. You cannot really ask for healing without faith. So, and this is also part of my religion, that you have to have faith first, and you have to believe when you ask, you're gonna get the answer. So I just wanted to say that thank you to him, Charles, that he helped me back 17 years ago, and he continued to keep me in business after that. So he kept coming until I sold the place a couple years ago. So I just wanted to tell my story for the first time in 17 years I talked about it. Thank you.
Up here. Thank you. You pulled some influence from other faiths, some Hindu and Buddhist faith, and we've mentioned a few other Abrahamic religions. Do you believe your methods can only help those who take a particular faith?
The answer is absolutely not. You just have to believe you're going to get a result. And so most of the people I work with are referred by medical doctors. And so these people come from all kinds of faith backgrounds. Some of them don't have any faith at all. And if they don't have faith, we don't talk about it. I have 30 different protocols that come from the medical community, and that's what I use with the people who I'm not working with spiritual counseling. So most of the people I work with are from the medical community, and I don't use spiritual counseling. I only use that with people who want that. Because some people would rather do that than go to a doctor's office. Yeah, and I also want to mention that everything I talked about today, there are scientific, other than the religious stuff, everything I talked about today, there are scientific studies to back it up. Because I have that year-long class that I teach, and it's for doctors, it's for psychologists, it's for counselors, and everything I teach them is from medical school textbooks. So the science is all there. We're just putting it together into a cohesive whole for the purpose of getting this particular result.
So before Harry wraps us up, can I do 2 commercials? One is at Christ Episcopal Church, and there's some flyers down here popping over there too. The Shroud Encounter, it's going to be on the 15th at 4 p.m. free admission. You can take one of these if you're interested in this, the Shroud Turin. And also, Elsa gave me these, or a couple of copies down here, on Sunday, October 9th. Faith in Blue, City of Reading. It's going to be Sunday afternoon from 1 to 4 in City Park. This is in Spanish and English. And I know the crop walk is at that same time, but they are doing it now that you can walk anytime, anywhere. You don't have to be at the crop walk to do, so you can actually be in 2 places at one time. So these are here if you want to have them.
Excuse me.
And why don't you say something about what you're doing next month?
Next month, okay, so, anybody ever hear of Peter Gomes?
Yes.
Yes.
Some of you, but not many. He's been dead for a number of years. He was the chaplain at Harvard, professor of religion, really smart guy. I heard him speak at one of our synods one time, and he said the problem with the church is that we are all victims of inadequate Sunday school education. And he was absolutely correct. I jettisoned most of the crap that I learned about God a long time ago, like original sin, stuff like that. It's useless garbage. Because I think it's useless garbage because it keeps us from being united, right? Religion that is exclusive is dangerous. And so I'm going to be talking next week about some thoughts about what it means to be having one God, but many faiths, many religions, sort of united in this sense. You can have your particular beliefs, but you can also understand and appreciate others. I can't imagine being in heaven without El Sayed, right? But many Christians would say that that's not going to happen, probably for both of us. So I hope you'll come, bring a friend. I don't know if we're going to be here. I don't know where, but
Yes, we'll be here.
we'll be in this space. Okay. Oh, one more commercial. Sorry, just got dropped off. Reading Community Candidate Forum. Chrissy Houlihan and I won't even try to say that name. Chirochi.
Yes.
October 23rd, 7 p.m. Miller Center. You can write it down. We'll leave it down here.
I just have one question.
Sure.
For Charlie. When do your new classes start?
2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, you're on the round that she'll hear back.
Oh, I'm sure. I'll be there. Thank you.
Charlie, I want to thank you very much for your presentation. You have given us a lot of words and a lot that has appealed to our intellect. What the matter is really to move from the intellect and from science into practice. And the practice of mindfulness, of course, is so important these days. And as Charlie said, you're hearing about it. If you go into a Barnes & Noble or any other bookstore, you'll see a section there on mindfulness and the brain conditions and so on. And I've been doing some readings in that study as well, some of the books that Charlie has mentioned. And hopefully we'll have more opportunities to not only to engage in this subject, but also to get involved in the practice of it. Keep in mind that the Spiritual Exploration Project has several components, and Spirit on Tap, of course, is the major one, and we thank you for coming to this. But we also have a contemplative spirituality group that meets in Kutztown, and the next one will be, this is on the second Thursday of the month, and Nancy Omaha Boyle will be talking about Native American spirituality. And you'll find, if you attend that, there will be some similarities to what we've heard this evening. And for those of you who are interested, that date is on October 13th. By the way, if you are not on our mailing list, please, and if you want to be, I have to qualify that because we've had some unsubscribers to it. But if you want to be, and if you want to know more about what's going on with Spirit on Tap, contemplative spirituality, And our third component, Soul Cafe, please make sure that you put your email address on this list, and we'll add you to that. The other component that we have is called Soul Cafe, and that meets at the Why Missing restaurant, and the next one will be on October 18th. And Bruce Poston is doing a 3-part series. This will be the second part. And the whole idea is that we really need to listen to one another, because all of us have stories to share. And all these stories are unique. You have your own story. I have my story. I'm trying to put them into books. I've written 3 books. I'm working on the 4th one for next year, and so on. You have stories. You need to write them. You need to tell them. And the one on the 18th of October will be Coming to America. And Al Sayed and Doc Templin and Doris, you'll be talking in November, and we'll have some others. The whole idea is coming to America. Why do people want to come here? What dreams do they have? What disappointments do they have? What is life like? We will hear their stories. And then in November, we'll wrap it up and give an opportunity to other people to tell their stories. So there are a lot of these things that are taking place. Please make sure you pick up forms that you want. Connie had mentioned about the Shroud of Turin. Do you want to say anything more about that?
Well, yeah, I hope that you all can make it. I'm not the one that brought it there. A man named David Eames, he had been a teacher in Wyomissing School District, and he saw this about 4 years ago, I think, up at Penn State, and he was just blown away by it. And he's long wanted to get it here, and it's finally coming. There will be no charge. He and our vestry are going to be, paying for it. It just should be, I can't wait. It'll be very, very, very interesting, to say the least.
Well, thank you for
Yeah, I understand he doesn't tell you what to think. Was this actual burial cloth of Jesus? Or was this a medieval forgery of some kind? Yeah. And he just lays out what has been gleaned scientifically and whatnot from this, and lets you make up your own mind. And this Soul Cafe on the 18th, what time is that?
Soul Cafe and Contemplative Spirituality are both at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
The Soul Cafe, does it have any sorts of, do you have a website or?
No, Soul Cafe meets at the Wyomissing restaurant. We meet in the back room there, and you can come and get brunch or lunch or whatever. And it's a small group, usually around 15 to 25 people. And it's just open to anybody who wants to come.
Give us your email. Right? They'll find out through email?
Yeah, if you get an email, please put your email address on there.
Legibly. Legibly.
Yes, legibly, so I can read it. And the last thing is, it's just a reminder, we need your donations to sustain our operation here, because we do have expenses that are beyond this. So if you are so inclined and you can, please feel free to make your contributions. Are there other questions, comments, announcements, or so on? Bob, Steve, you have anything else? Okay, we are in a new place here at the Doubletree, and we're very grateful to the Doubletree for doing this. Steve will be here next month, but November will be also an interesting program, because the general manager of the Doubletree, Craig Poole, will be speaking, will be our speaker. And he's going to be talking about caring for our neighbor. And if you've read anything in the paper or heard anything about Craig, what he's been doing, hiring people almost literally off the streets, and and giving them jobs and help and caring for them and building up their self-esteem and their desire to become part of our community. So look forward to that in November. We can't announce the others because we don't have the dates yet. The Doubletree is only going to do this 3 months at a time. But at November, we'll announce what's coming up next year. So, Paul?
Just if you know of people who normally come to this, spread the word that we're in this room, so we don't have to stand out there and say it's this way. Not that we won't do it, but it will help. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Thank you very much for your attention.